Hello and welcome to a new series here on UK theme parks, as for the very first time we load Planet Zoo. Now, we avoided the beta of Planet Zoo and we waited for its release date, which was on the 5th of November, and this is the first time we're switching it on, so you're going to see it for the first time with us. For those that are getting the game, it's quite graphically demanding. It's made by the same people that course do Planet Coaster. You'll have seen a Planet Coaster series and a new one coming up on UK theme parks, but we love this as well. This is going to be another great strategy game and we want to share it with you. At the end of the day, this is the kind of thing we want to do on the channel, particularly as the close season hits in. We're going to do this. So the first thing we're going to do, as we can see, is we're going to create our profile. Now then, it would probably be wrong of me to go for someone Finn, because as it's rudely pointed out to me quite a lot, that I'm not Finn by any means. So we're going to create a little profile here before getting into it. And what I'm going to show you today is basically me starting the game. This is genuinely the first time I've switched on the game. And we're going to literally create our profile and we're going to go into the beginning scenario mode. Episode 1 will be the scenario mode, and we're going to go through effectively the training on it, because I've heard there's quite a lot of depth to this game compared to, say, Planet Coaster, where you can just pick it up and start doing things. This is a little bit more kind of, you know, important, where you've got like kind of live animals as well you're looking after. You need to get habitats right, you need to get feeding right, you need to get ground right, you need to get shelter right, you need to get a lot more right than what you do with coasters before you can actually adopt the animals and get them in there. So we're going to do this first, and then we're going to head into a challenge mode a bit further down the line, and we're going to continuously play Planet Coaster rather than a series to begin with. We're going to kind of do 6 or 7 episodes, and as you see here, we're going to head into first steps of the career, and we're going to try out the different modes before we're comfortable and go into a sandbox mode. Now, for those that are wondering, Planet Coaster, when I kind of picked that up and first started it, it played very, very similarly to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. So, you know, it was quite easy to pick up and kind of get along with, where I've heard Planet Zoo is very, very different. So we're going to head into this challenge mode and we're going to see what it's all about. I've had to upgrade the PC for this, which will also benefit the Planet Coaster. You'll see on the next season of Planet Coaster, it does get a bit laggy in places, but we'll explain to that one when we get a bit closer to it. Whereas this one, we have a new graphics card, we have a couple of other upgrades as well, because it wasn't compatible with Planet Zoo, to make sure that it is compatible, and indeed it runs smoothly. So I've been really looking forward to this. It runs a different engine to what Planet Coaster does, so it is going to be graphically a lot better than what Planet Coaster is, which I find, you know, amazing as it is, because I think Planet Coaster looks absolutely gorgeous. But this is going to be a bit of a tutorial for those that haven't switched it on before. Let's see what it's all about.
Heyo at Hematu. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I have a habit of slipping back into the Planko language. It's good to finally meet you in person. I'm Bernard, although I insist you call me Bernie. The only person who calls me Bernard is my wife. And even then, only when I've tracked elephant dung into the carpets. As you know, I own several zoos, but I always like to show people the ropes here at my home. This is the first zoo I ever opened, and a source of great pride for me. And prides, thanks to a lion breeding program we ran in the 80s. But we're in the middle of a big renovation, and that's where you come in. Sadly, our old contractor had to retire after developing a fur allergy. Poor devil kept sneezing his dentures into the lion habitat. So, it's up to you to finish everything off. Don't worry, though. I'm not completely throwing you into the deep end. My head keeper, Nancy Jones, will be lending a helping hand. Oh, she's a hard worker, and she'll expect you to be too. But I'm sure you'll get along like a house on fire, or even better, one that isn't on fire. Less shouting that way.
Hello there. From that rosy, fresh face of yours, I'm guessing you're Bernie's new hire. Good. Now, I hope you're ready to ditch your diploma, because we're about to get really hands-on. But before we begin the real work, how about we familiarize you with the zoo by learning how to fly around it and visiting some of our beautiful animals. We'll start by popping over and having a look-see at the grizzly bears in their habitat.
So that was quite a fun introduction to the game, in honesty, and it's kind of going to point us in the right direction where we're going to have to do the basics of the park. For those looking to get the Planet Zoo, it's been really useful for you to kind of understand what you'll need to do and really the depth that goes into it before we, even look at the species of animals.
Did you know that grizzly bears, also known as Ursus arctos horribilis, can hibernate for up to 7 months a year? Oh, but then again, given the chance, I think a lot of people would do that too.
It's lovely dialogue that's going on with this.
Select one of the bears and you'll bring up its information panel.
Right, we need to find one of the bears, so let's find one of the bears. I swear I've just seen a bear. Look at this one, look, there's a little model one. I love this on top of the viewing tower. Can't wait to get into some of the scenery details just from looking around. There's loads of great scenery details. But let's click on the bear.
This is where you can find out all kinds of information about your animal. The most important thing being its overall welfare. You'll learn more about animal welfare today as we go through your objectives. But for now, let's enjoy this magnificent animal. Why don't you select the camera at the bottom of its information panel?
So the camera modes here, I mean, these look very, very similar to what we have on Planet Coaster. Look at the detail. Detail is absolutely stunning. Even going underwater there.
By simply double-clicking on it.
And then come out as normal. So nothing really new there, to be honest with you.
Let's pop over to the other side of the zoo and take a look at the lions. I've marked their location for you to find.
So this looks like a kind of a mid-range zoo. It doesn't look that massive, to be fair.
Panthera leo leo, or the West African lion to you and me. Lions are the most social of the big cats, and there can be as many as 40 lions in a pride, although prides of that size are pretty rare. As Bernie would say, those lions are awesome, which is precisely why I handle the training instead these days. Anyway, how about we get started on those objectives? Come on, let's head over to an empty habitat and see what needs doing there.
Oh, it's just a great model, absolutely great model. Again, the detail which you can see on here is just stunning as we move over. So again, they're pointing us in the direction of empty habitats as to what we need to do.
It's a lovely space for animals, but it's missing a certain something. Well, two somethings. Warthogs. So I'd like you to adopt a pair of them. To adopt animals, we need to open the animal market, which is in the animal
head into the animal market as located in the bottom there. And we're going to try and find some warthogs to go in here.
There we are, a pair of perfectly splendid warthogs for our zoo. Just click on them and select Adopt from the side menu.
So if we click on that, it highlights it green, and then at the bottom here we have Adopt. We'll do the same with that one.
The last thing
it says they're waiting in the marketplace. And then we can click in there, and it brings them over, I'm guessing.
When you adopt an animal, it's automatically placed in the trade centre, where they're held until you're ready to move them into their habitat, which, as it happens, you are. So how about you move them into their new home?
Right, so we need to go back in here. It says, where's the trade? Oh, we've moved one. Right, here we go, and the other one's coming as well.
When you ask for an animal to be moved into a habitat, your caretakers will go to the trade centre, collect your animal, and deliver them to your selected habitat.
Brilliant.
I've marked the trade centre's location, so let's go and watch the caretakers in action.
Right, so where is the trade centre? Where is the trade centre? There it is, I can see it highlighted down there. It's now got big squares coming from it. Let's head over to the trade centre.
Well, as you can see, those caretakers don't hang about.
They'll move
those animals to their destination as fast as possible. Of course, normally we'd have to place the animals into quarantine before moving them into a habitat.
Oh, there's one.
But I am assured.
There comes the other one. Whoa, just lobbed that box in the air. That poor warthog.
Are in the very rudest of health.
Right, in they go.
Let's get the warthog's habitat finished up so we can keep them nice and happy. You see, each animal in the zoo has an overall welfare statistic, basically how happy they are. And that overall welfare statistic is itself comprised of 4 different areas: nutrition, social health, habitat, and enrichment. Luckily, if you select an animal, you'll bring up their animal welfare information panel, which we saw earlier, where
which
you
we've
can
got on the
see
screen
how
now.
they're doing. That way, you'll know exactly what areas need to be
So this one doesn't have a lot of enrichment
Don't worry
going on.
That's a lot to remember. You can always check the Zoopedia for more information. Let's start by making sure we're taking care of the warthog's nutrition welfare. To do this, we'll need to place a food station and a drinking station. Now, each animal requires a different type of feeding station. And for the warthogs, it's a small feeding trough. So let's add one of those and a water bowl.
So certainly at the moment, it looks like we're quite limited on what will be in options. I imagine there's going to be more than 2 troughs, but I think for the tutorial, it's kind of only given us the 2. I think ideally you'd have these in before you would actually put the animals in, particularly from a welfare point of view, to get the statistics up here on the right.
Animals also require stimulation to keep them happy. Let's add a lovely mud bath for the warthogs to roll around in. That bath will count towards their enrichment welfare, specifically their toy enrichment. So
again, I think there would be more enrichments for other animals, but we'll put a mud bath in.
Oh, nice work. You've got a knack for this, I see.
They're coming in to feed and water.
Our contractor had to leave in a hurry, so this place is in a pharaoh's state. Unfinished thingamajigs and whatsits all over the shop. But the first thing we need to finish is the ostrich habitat. It's over near the hippos.
Right, so that's that one done. So we've got some new animals in, and we now need to go and find the ostrich area, which it's missing some walls. It's missing quite a few walls actually.
Let's keep the game paused while we get this ostrich habitat built.
Right, so we've paused the game in order to finish the habitat so that things don't go on around us.
Complete the barrier. Every habitat needs a habitat gate. After all, how else would the keepers get in and out? Just make sure it's hooked up to the path so the keepers can reach it.
So we need to put a gate in. So for anyone that's played Zoo Tycoon, which was on the PC, there was Zoo Tycoon 1 or 2. I think it was released on the Nintendo DS as well. Not sure if it ever made console. Someone put in the comments if it did make console. It kind of...
Let's complete the perimeter barrier so we can adopt us some ostriches.
Right, so we'll go around the outside of the border here, but it's very similar in the way it's kind of laid out, in the fact that you need gates and you need viewing windows and things, and obviously to put all of this in, which seems to link quite nicely actually.
Good work. Remember, before you can place animals in any habitat, it has to have a full loop of connected barrier.
Oh yeah.
Now, you've probably noticed that guests can't actually see into this habitat at the moment, at least not without a stepladder. But seeing as they're banned, I'd like you to select a piece of barrier and swap out the brick for a glass barrier. So we can put a glass
viewing area in. And again, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 as well obviously had the wild pack. It was very basic in terms of what you did with the animals. It was just very much get animals in, put viewing platforms up, and off you kind of go. But this is going to be far more in depth, and it certainly looks more in depth so far than what Zoo Tycoon is. But we'll get this done, and we'll try and complete some of these objectives in this first episode before we kind of head on to a challenge mode and really test ourselves.
It's always best to make sure the guests can get a good view into a habitat from the path they're walking on, because it makes them happy, and because this would be a pretty terrible zoo if they couldn't. The last thing we need to do is to add a donation box. You see, when guests enjoy the view of an animal, they'll make a donation. Just make sure you put them in easy-to-reach places, like near a viewing point. Donation boxes are one of the main sources.
Right, so we get the donation boxes in.
So make sure
can we get another one? No.
Now,
so now it is time to indeed get the ostriches, and we've been told we need to get 4 in here. Now it will be really interesting to see when we get into challenge mode, kind of how these ones fill out, because you've got you know, your stored animals, whether you have stored ones, and then you've got the animal market to buy, and you've got the adoption ones here. Obviously they want us to get 4, so there's 4 in here. So it will be interesting to see how that sort of plays out. As I said, we don't really know how this varies from the beta version, because we decided against playing the beta version. We've done that with games in the past, and it puts off games, to be honest with you. So we thought we would wait until it's done before doing it. But let's get these ostriches in here now. Right, so that's the ostriches getting placed in there now. We'll get them placed in. The keepers will bring them over, we're led to believe, and we'll quickly put in some food. So this is a slow feeder going in there now, and a couple of troughs of water, which they suggest you put by the viewing area so that the animals are closer to the viewing area, which will help with donations. Again, it'd be really interesting to see how the mechanic works on here, but there's our 1 star.
The ostriches have somewhere they can really stretch their
In he comes with the ostrich.
Did you know?
Throws it on the ground. Oh, he's been squashed by
43 miles per hour?
There he is.
Oh, heaven forbid they ever escape. The speed camera fines alone would bankrupt us.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Right, let's see what we're moving on to next.
Well, Bernie certainly seems impressed. Did he do his speed camera joke? Every time we get an ostrich. So, now we've made the ostriches' lives a bit better, let's do the same for the keepers, shall we? To make it easier for the keepers to feed the ostriches and hippos, we should build a new keeper hut. Keeper huts are where the keepers prepare the food for animals, so they should be placed near to the habitats to make sure the keepers don't waste their time walking when they should be looking after the animals.
So we've got to put in a few various huts around. Again, we're being pointed to it, so I don't think there's going to be much of an option. Looks like you kind of got a
You'll need to rotate
classic
the
looking
keeper
wooden
hut
one,
to
or
get it to connect up to the
a little bit
path.
more of a modern one. Connecting it to the path exactly the same as what it is in Planet Coaster. Obviously on this particular induction, we have a square box that we have to put it in.
This keeper hut only has space for one keeper, but the larger keeper hut can allow multiple keepers to prepare food at the same time. Oh, but bear in mind that keeper huts and other staff facilities shouldn't be placed near to areas where there are lots of guests. Guests don't like seeing facility buildings, and it can affect their happiness. Negatively.
Well, I'll tell you, that's interesting, because again on Planet Coaster, staff buildings aren't really put in like that, but on here they're saying that staff buildings need to be away from guest areas. So as you can see, this little area we've put it down here is at the back end of one with a gate and the back end of the ostrich one. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see. I wonder how that actually pans out once you get into the game.
This map allows you to see what is and what isn't powered in your zoo. So once you've placed your transformer, you can click in the bottom left to turn the heat map off.
So what you've just seen there is a heat map.
Lovely work. Now the keepers can start using the hut to prepare food, and thanks to where you've put it, they won't need to walk very far to deliver it to the ostriches and hippos.
It reminds me a bit of SimCity. For those of you who play SimCity or do play the new SimCities, it requires you to put power grids in around the park. Now again, on Planet Coaster, it's not something we've ever needed to do, but on here you have heat maps. That's quite interesting. That really is quite interesting, actually, how we do that. But from the power, what we're doing now is we're going to follow the directions on screen very, very quickly, and we're going to build our own enclosure. And this enclosure is going to be for Bengal tigers. So we're going to put a nice big wall around. And what basically they explain to you here is that obviously tigers could potentially climb over this wall. So you can actually go in, we'll put the gate in first, we'll try and put a viewing area. Right, so we need to expand it. So you can actually go around and select it all, much like you can with Coaster Track. And you need to raise it to a minimum of 3.75 so the tigers don't come out. It's quite interesting to see they haven't kind of got the indent barbed wire across the top, to be honest with you, and that they're kind of going with the, you know, just the high walls. Funny enough, it's not letting me put in a viewing glass. So we'll adopt the tigers. The tigers are supposed to be there to be adopted, and of course you put in the food for them. However, they actually drink from the lake. So we'll stick in some calm water. You have to have a very slow, slope, very, very low slope for them to be able to get in there. We're going to put in a bed for them as well, and we put in some scratching posts and indeed some blood pumpkins, because that's their enrichment. Now then, we do need to also sort out the bushes. Now the bushes that are in this enclosure are actually wrong. We're told they're actually wrong. We're told some of the terrain is wrong as well. So we need to put some more mud in for them, which we'll do around the water area. And then we'll kind of switch and then get rid of these trees. We'll get rid of these trees and make sure we get the right ones in. So as you can see here on the right hand side, it is telling you what kind of trees you should have in here. That then means when you go into the habitat button that you can select the right trees and bushes for that particular area. So these are ones that are available. You know, it's a nice selection. You can obviously see expansions coming further in time. We'll select the right one and we'll pop just some random ones in. You know, this isn't our park. We don't have to make it look that pretty, in honesty. We just need to make sure we get through the scenario and that everyone's happy. And there we go. So that's 2 stars on Good Wing House. So
good fences,
great result.
Good neighbors. I guess that's doubly true when one of the neighbors is a Bengal tiger.
So that was stage 2 complete, and rather than kind of take you through the whole of stage 3, for stage 3 you're pretty much left to go in and do everything else. The last task was this one, which oddly enough, this is a snow leopard enclosure. They don't have enough privacy, so you can actually get 2-way glass, which again is a lovely touch. And again, you bring the heat map out and you can see that they're in a really hot temperature and they don't like hot temperature. So you can put cooling fans in, and you have to put them in. It does take a few minutes for them to kind of register. So you'll see the one already there that was already in there, and then you'll see it slowly cooling down around it. We need to change it to snow because they are snow leopards. They prefer a bit of snow, a little bit of mud, and really change their habitats. And then we were sent to the tortoise area here to put some shelter in because they had no shelter, and we were also sent over to the zebra area because they had no habitat effectively. So here we've put in some bouncy balls for them. We've put in some sprinklers as well up the top here, which you can see. Another feeding trough because there's a few in there and they had absolutely no shelters, so we put in some extra shelters for them. So that kind of brings their happiness up right the way across the board. And interestingly, as you can see here, when I'm clicking on the items at the bottom, it does actually tell you on the right hand side what those items are used for. And I didn't spot this at first. I don't actually think it was there at first because obviously it was in you know, a mode where you are training, but now you're a little bit more freer. You can make sure you get the exact right one for it. So arguably there's no excuse to get it wrong. But once we've done this, that was it. That was the end of stage 3. We were then told obviously that's the end of our training and we can head on to another scenario. Now, we don't really want to play the scenarios, and honestly it's not something we've done in Planet Coaster, but we thought to get into this game, that is something we'd do. So we'll exit out and go back to the main menu and just kind of show you what there is and, you know, what the menu looks like. So this is Planet Zoo when you load it. You've got lovely green, you've got lovely continents all laid out. So you've got the franchise mode, which we'll have to get involved in what the franchise mode is, because I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. You've got the career, you've then got the challenge mode, which is the mode we are going to play next. You've then got, well, from challenge, much like you can sandbox, you can pick areas you want to go to. And they will of course have the different biomes for you. So have you bought Planet Zoo? Is Planet Zoo something you're going to be getting into? It is something we're going to be getting into on the channel. We have a diverse range of content. We hope to obviously cater for everyone. We will be doing Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo over the closed season, as well as keeping up with our theme park bits and pieces. Let us know in the comments below. Have you enjoyed it? Will you be buying it?